My name is Julia. I am 29 years old. It was the kind of secret that doesn't just break your heart. It shatters everything you thought you knew about yourself. I always believed my life was built on something solid, but that night, when my mother finally told me the truth, I realized my foundation had always been made of sand. For as long as I can remember, it's been just me and my mom. My dad left when I was 2, and though I had vague memories of him, they were more like snapshots than real moments. My mom raised me single-handedly, working 2 jobs and somehow still finding the energy to help me with my homework or make my favorite spaghetti on Friday nights. Our life wasn't perfect, but it was ours. We had our routines, our inside jokes, our little world where it was just us against everything else. I thought I knew her favorite songs, her guilty pleasures, the way she'd always hum when she was deep in thought. But it turns out I only knew pieces of her, the parts she wanted me to see. It started with a phone call. I'd just gotten home from work when the landline rang. A relic we kept because my mom refused to let go of it. I answered, expecting another telemarketer, but the voice on the other end stopped me cold. "Is this Julia?" It was a man's voice, deep and unfamiliar. "Yes, who's this?" I asked, my stomach tightening for reasons I couldn't explain. There was a pause, and then he said, I think I might be your father." My first instinct was to hang up. This had to be some kind of cruel joke. But before I could, my mom's voice called out from the kitchen. "Who is it?" she asked. When I told her, the color drained from her face. I'd never seen her look like that before, like someone had reached inside her chest and squeezed her heart. She grabbed the phone from me, and without a word, she hung up. The silence between us that night was suffocating. My mom sat at the kitchen table, staring at her hands, while I stood frozen in the doorway. Finally, I broke the silence. Was that my dad?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she got up, opened a drawer, and pulled out a small box I'd never seen before. Inside were photos, letters, and a hospital bracelet with my name on it. "Julia," she began, her voice trembling, "there's something I've been meaning to tell you for a long time, but I didn't know how." Over the next hour, she unraveled a story that didn't just change the way I saw her, it changed the way I saw myself. She told me about a man she'd fallen in love with when she was young, how he'd left before I was born, and how she'd done everything she could to protect me from the pain of his absence. But then she said something that hit me like a punch to the gut. "Julia, the man who called, he's not your father." I stared at her, confused. "Then who is?" I asked. She hesitated, tears pooling in her eyes. "I don't know," she admitted. "I was young, and I made mistakes. I've spent years trying to forget, but it's time you knew the truth." I'd never felt so untethered, like I was floating in some vast empty space with nothing to hold on to. Who was I if I didn't even know where I came from? The questions swirled in my mind, each one more painful than the last. Was my father a good man? Did he even know I existed? Did I have siblings out there somewhere, living lives I'd never be a part of? And why had my mom kept this from me for so long? I'd always admired her strength, but now it felt like a wall she'd built to keep me out. That night, I locked myself in my room and sobbed until my throat burned. I felt betrayed, not just by my mom, but by the entire narrative of my life. It was like reading a book only to find out the ending had been torn out. It's been 3 months since that night, and I'm still trying to piece everything together. My mom and I are talking again, but it's different now. There's a distance between us that wasn't there before, a fragile thread we're both afraid to pull too hard. I've started looking into DNA testing, hoping it might give me some answers. Part of me is terrified of what I'll find, but another part of me knows I can't keep living in the dark. I need to know who I am, even if the truth is messy or painful. But the biggest question of all is this: can I ever truly forgive my mom? She kept this secret to protect me, but in doing so, she's left me with a wound I don't know how to heal. If you've ever felt like your past was a puzzle missing too many pieces, or if this story resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe. Sometimes the hardest truths are the ones that set us free, and maybe, just maybe, sharing them can help someone else feel a little less alone.